I just went like this, going.
I want to wear a mask.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started for today's, well, this month, I guess. March 13th board meeting. We will do a roll call. I think twice we have. Oh, thank you.
Are you looking for yourself?
I just want to see if anyone was on there.
Do we have
There's
anyone?
one person, maybe 2 people.
2 people?
Yeah.
Do you want to start, Sarah? What am I doing?
Roll call.
Roll call.
If I just say my name. Sarah. I'm here.
Here.
Just stand up, say your name and your favorite color.
No, Meryl.
Stan.
I didn't
Megan?
learn from you.
Sorry, Lisa.
Stan.
Kristen. Tiffany.
Adam.
Jen. Tia.
And Matthew.
All right, so we're just missing Angela, who said she was going to be here today, and Brandon. I didn't hear from, so. Maybe.
He was a former student of mine.
I know Andre is not coming today, so. All right. Well, thank you all for attending. Let's do the pledge of allegiance between bites and we'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission of ECS is to educate each student to high academic standards using innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment, and preserve future generations, we grow citizens. Our vision, every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen driving thoughtful change in the world around them. Just take a moment to recognize guests. Keith Bennett, welcome. Good to see you in person. And you who report out a little bit later. Great, thanks. And we did not have anyone sign up for public comment today, so we'll pass that. LaTanya added the meeting minutes to the drive, so hopefully everybody had an opportunity to read those, as well as the financial reports. And so I'll just give a moment to see if anybody has any questions about any in the minutes or the reports. Just out of curiosity, the lease extension, when does that, how far in the future does that
He was the former.
go? So, Raphael lease extension?
Right, it's, the package kind of stays long, this one's like a year, I believe. We'll negotiate,
Anybody have any questions? All right, so we'll go ahead and read the resolution. Resolution 2023-2082, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the consent agenda for March 2023 be approved. Make a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's so moved. Okay, all right, we'll move right into board business. First up, Mandy, with the Much awaited calendar.
Copies of the calendar, the draft calendar for next year for review. Just some things to note that there are half days listed in there, and so we're still waiting to find out exactly how PBS half days will. Get some information out today that they're going back to some half days, so I'm gonna wait. The half days are kind of tentative right now as far as I'd like to match them up as much as we can. It's on the highlights in the calendar ones that we did decrease the number of half days by 3 total for this year. As far as the start date goes, it's the August 22nd, and then the end date would be June 13th, and that June 13th would be Community Service Day, which we're gonna pilot this school year. We did work with our union friends in order to get to this. I know there were 3 kind of drafts floating out there. Chelsea and I worked together to think about what the best would be, plus we also knew kind of roundabout when PPS would end. So this is the one that would mirror as much as we could those things. Some highlights are still a spring break around, that is March. We have the testing dates on there so families will know the windows for PSSAs, Keystones. Any questions, anything you want to know about the calendar? I'm happy to answer them.
Does the spring break week off align with Pittsburgh Public?
We don't know because there was communication out, I think it was probably last week or so, that they were voting on spring break. And then just today, they went back and said they'll have a full 8-day spring break. And so I would like it to. This is where it went. We lined up this year also, so.
So today our approval approves it, or is this an update?
This is just an update for all of you.
Okay.
I would really like to hold off on the final until I know some of those dates, because I know we really like to have as much mirroring. But if there's any major things that you can see here, kind of that you'd like me to take into account before we make this a final version, please let me know. We do have our August PD talking about how we can make sure that that's really successful with our union. One of the other things you notice that their new staff, their orientation day, we're thinking about being a little bit more flexible that week of August so that they don't start on a Friday and then have the whole next week as professional development. So we're trying to be as mindful of our staff time also.
So the 10 days that were requested, some are coming off in August, some are coming off in June, and then 3 of them came off as half days.
It's just 5 days, yeah. So 5,
Sorry.
yeah, we took 5 and it's a split difference. So there's a few at the beginning and a few at the end.
Got it.
And then in order to kind of balance that out, we added those half days, those 3 days back. So for as far as time, instructional hours.
Sorry if I missed this, how many half days are compared to how many half days?
There are 3 lists in this one. And we're hoping to have, they're not all planning half days that we took out, so they're professional development days and things like that.
You noticed that most of my bullet points were citing things that teachers and staff members of the meeting were pleased about the calendar draft. The biggest one was adding a second day of conferences for parent conferences because often those are so important and it's hard to choose. So we were really happy with that.
So sorry, the 3 half days, meaning you turned those into full days, or we got rid of those days?
I turn them into full
Yeah,
days. So
okay.
3 of the half days, so we'll add that time kind of back into the calendar.
Okay.
There is some confusion between what the large deal and EPS is going back to the boards, because it seemed pretty definitive last week when they pushed forward this notion of, excuse me, this notion of truncated Wednesday and no half days, and so was it today?
They just today,
Pushed
as far
back,
as I know.
right?
Yeah, I just heard on the news before, and they had sent out a survey to all PPS parents. But I heard on the news that they decided to go back to the old schedule because there was a lot of concern about the Wednesday
Okay.
hour delay. versus the half days. According to WPAE.
I was gonna say regarding half-days of the staff, I tried to eliminate it from my statement because in our meeting it was so controversial that half-day. Staff members with kids prefer fewer half-days. They think those are really difficult to find childcare for. And I'm sure it's the same for parents. And, but the overall consensus was like eliminating the half-days, but short day in the calendar will probably be easier for childcare for everyone. And then like some staff felt like, wow, those half-days are great for community building, and we rely on those for like, sometimes like a class reward that you're working for, or a special project. We just have Black History Month doors after intermediate, and a lot of us use the half-days to work on those. But on the other hand, other teachers felt like you don't get as much instructional, like whole days are much better than, or one whole day is much better than 2 half-days. So I can't say, like, even the staff is torn on the half-days. It's not going to be as good for everyone.
This is a side note, monkey wrench, not for this calendar, but as a parent of a teenager who went from like never needing to sleep to wanting to sleep in all the time, we were very interested in the PPS plan to start late on Wednesdays. Have we considered late starts for the high school students ever?
Yeah, we did, but we ended up going through a process with the high school parents and students at the time, and they all prefer to match up with surrounding high schools for sports. So it's a back and forth, right? So we understand that, yes, you do need your sleep, but also if we want to be able to release to folks to play on other teams in their home districts, that's where they landed, but it's never something that we're gonna, it's not like we'll never go back to that. We'll continue to look at it. I do understand that's best for our students.
There's some interesting models out there. City Charter High, for instance, has one day its high school week remote. And we use that in a particular way that allows for those moments, right? And it's worth taking a look at some of the models and deciding what might work for our kids.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there was like a really robust discussion with us at the table and representing the other teachers. Yeah, great resolution.
So our next steps for this are just, I'm going to hopefully get the PPS calendar out, match up those days, and then it will go out to, I can, maybe Tia, I can send it to you to also get some parent feedback once we get those days matched up. I don't want to send it out and then have people tell me the half days aren't matching. So let's make sure that those are matched up, and then you can get some parent feedback if you wouldn't mind.
I would love to get some parent feedback and PCO too, to get some of our events on maybe like the same.
Yep, that would be great.
Great, yay.
Yep, and so hopefully by next month, we'll have like, this is it.
Okay.
As we do that, we have a section of our community, and everyone looks through that individual lenses to make sure that we hit public holidays, et cetera, et cetera.
Is it customary to not have July on here just for extended school year, 12 months staff? You're not showing the full 12 months?
I can, we typically don't, but I can.
I just think it would be helpful, just for a full picture.
One last question. Even though we're going to get feedback and looking at PPS, would you say that the start date probably will remain as proposed?
I'd like to, I think that the start and end would be good. I'll take feedback on other things too. But generally, it's about the same as it's always been. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything that the schedule's going.
Yeah. Okay, see you for, yeah.
I think we may see before this, so I'm going to pause on that as before and just head on. It's like a human cost.
Mandy, Are we back to you for?
Back to me.
Okay.
So I just wanted to update everyone. We did have, the lottery happened, is alive and well. We are also in re-enrollment phase, so also all of our current families are able to now tell us whether or not they are intending to return for next school year. So always, these are numbers that are in flux, because we don't know necessarily how many of those re-enrollments, we're not at the deadline yet, I should say. So I thought the best thing to do would probably just be to show you the strength of our waiting list at every grade level. Obviously, there's going to be movement from waitlist to enrolled if we don't have some of our current families re-enroll. So this is not the total number of waitlists that we'll see kind of throughout the school year, and it might change, but you can see that we do have overall 517 students on our waiting list kindergarten through 12th grade.
How does this track with last year's?
It's down a little bit.
I think it'd be interesting to see by grade as you guys look, or if you, whatever analysis that may really tell a story or a trend.
Is there a period for re-enrollment? Like, does it look like in other years, are we having most families re-enroll, or are we too soon for that?
I think we're too soon, to be honest, but it looks like it's pretty strong from what I can see.
We can report on these numbers on multiple places.
Yeah. That might be better next month.
I think that's this last month, and I got myself all confused. Right now, we have an 11th grade, right?
Yep. So those 11th graders going to 12th grade. This is for next school year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I guess it really wouldn't make a lot of sense. I guess a lot of parents would not want to enroll their kids to 12th grade. Yeah. I don't think so. Okay.
I think that would be very challenging from a
Yeah.
credit standpoint.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, there's a significant drop off in 10th grade. If they're,
Mm-hmm.
And are the, how does the priority of the wait list work? Is it just wherever they ended up in the lottery, they're the next priority on the wait list?
Yeah, it's really just the old school lottery, kind of like picking names out of a hat. This is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one. I don't know how I could explain it, but as soon as your name is drawn, that's where you are on the wait list. And so we just start at the top and work our way down.
And if we have an open spot, are we obligated to take a student on the wait
If
list?
we have space, yeah.
There's no discretion on your,
We don't,
you couldn't reject a student.
no, but you don't have, if we don't have the spot, we don't take anyone off the wait list. So.
But if you have a spot, you have to take the student?
You don't have to, it depends on the time of year, right? So right now, we wouldn't necessarily take someone because we've got someone behind them for the next school year. So it just depends on the school year and where you are, whether you would want to reach back into last year's waiting list or not. And it wouldn't probably make sense at this point to do that.
but can you skip over a kid on the waiting list?
No.
Okay.
You had a kid who was expelled from 5 schools before they applied here. Would you be obligated to take them?
I don't think we know
I
that.
don't.
There are two sides of it, right? One, you're right, there's a motivation. On the other side, you can have a frank conversation with the family. We're a very particular school, and we don't fit everyone. And we don't have the services for all kiddos. And so it's up to us to have a pretty frank conversation with families and say, this is who we are, this is what we represent, these are our values. Do you fit, and are you ready to go? And then you can have that conversation. Now, at that point still, you're not committed to saying, no, you can't. We're a public space, and that's exactly how we operate. So it doesn't preclude you from having a conversation.
Is that preclusion, is that by law, or that is school policy, or the requirement to take the next student on the list? Is that a legal requirement, I guess?
It's a great question. As we understand it, these spaces are public spaces, and we're obligated to do that. What the challenges have been around that, I can't speak to that, but there have been some challenges. Folks that have not done that and been challenged in a way. So we can take a look at some of the case for that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think if you didn't do it that way, then it, one, would defeat the purpose of the lottery, and it's not ethically, it's just not a good thing
Then
to
you could
do.
get in real
Yeah.
PR nightmare, if that was the case, potentially.
Wasn't there some discussion around like developing and onboarding for some of the families who are transferring in, just to be able to understand ECS culture and
In the works, and trying to figure out what that might look like for, rising sixth grade and incoming sixth grade families.
Like one, our kids have been successful here.
absolutely.
And if you
Right.
go, it's,
Mhm.
it's not quite, and it's, we're obligated to have that conversation, so everything we need to know can be fully informed choice. And all the ways,
Yeah.
we started that work where, you know, come on in, spend time with us, and make sure that you like who we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. You want to acclimate folks to culture and expectations and families then, right, can, to your point, make that sort of informed decision like, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for us, or at least they know what's expected of me and my child.
There are good examples of that. If we look at Pittsburgh public schools, we look at certain magnet schools, they'll present themselves at campus suicide. And we say, well, in order to arrive here, you need to audition, and we would like to have a certain PSSA score, and we're going to have a chance to chat to you. What that looks like exactly, I don't know, I can't speak to that, but those exist in those magnet schools. We align ourselves to that program, and those kind of programs. Are we committed to have those conversations? I would argue, yes, we are. But ultimately, ECS is, you know, pretty open to all kiddos and all families.
Sorry, I am like swirling around on like the PSSR, right? Hey, scores and like that some schools have the ability to do that requirement.
I know for most of the Pittsburgh public magnet schools, that's not a requirement. I know for Kappa, they do have those extra because they're a performing arts school. But for the other ones, like my daughter was on a wait list for 2 schools and it was a lottery. And they told me what her place was on the wait list at each school. And there was no other requirement except that I apply.
Okay, there's the thought. All right.
You're focusing on sticks.
Yeah, yeah.
Big old fish.
All right. Katie, we'll come to you for sorry, that was like not the best thing.
So nice to be here in person. I'm Katie Sukenik, third and fourth grade grouping homeroom teacher, and also the union representative that's here today. I already shared most of the points were to highlight aspects of the calendar that the teachers were supportive of, and we really appreciate the work that we did together with admin on the calendar. And the other thing that I was going to share was just that we were really pleased. A lot of teachers are getting life-changing raises today. I think this is amazing, right? Yeah, I think today.
We're just gonna be
From the highest needs positions that have been hard to fill. And we're hoping that the MOU that has gone into effect will help ECS retain the great teachers that we already have and help recruit additional professionals when positions are difficult to hire. So thank you for that. And, yeah, everything's positive. Yeah. Looking over my notes. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
And thank you, Katie, that team did work really well with us, and that was a difficult piece to pull together, and it was a really MOU, so appreciate it.
Yeah. All working for the kids, so thank you for your time. I always watch on the Zoom, I'm standing here because I know I'm off camera right now. Watching nothing from the couch. But it is nice to see your face and to be able to I would say no, that's no.
Oh,
I
I'm so
just
sorry.
wanted to celebrate our middle school robotics team for a minute. I'm not sure if you're all aware, but our middle school robotics team has won and has moved on to world championships. Dave Stater and the team there, the students have done an amazing job. We're just now thinking about how we can help support fund them, because the world championship is in Dallas, Texas, and it's pretty soon, so in April, I think, so end of April. So we're trying to think about how we can raise some additional funds in order to support those teams, not just the team that won, but also some learning teams to go to, because it's a really nice way that we can support those efforts.
Right, the ECS Foundation jumped into that.
They did.
Quickly created a system for giving, supporting, taking the call, and ultimately we get that out in front. We're looking for approximately 7 to 10,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more depending on the number of folks that we send. And I think we had a donation already. Thank you, Mandy's mom. But we want to send the kids, and we'll fly down there. And we want to work. They stay here.
No, that's a great thing to pause and celebrate. I saw the post, but it's great to hear. I didn't know where they were going afterwards.
Dallas, Texas.
What experience for those kiddos. Are they all middle school?
Yeah, the middle school team. Yeah.
Who took that?
Yeah, I think one is on the meeting list, or how do we?
One team's on the waiting list and then one team qualified.
Yeah, so we might have two.
Another team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
We think maybe you should go.
Oh. I lived in Dallas for 3 years. Right in my love field.
With the robotics team, we get a really big budget.
Great. Tia.
Hi, everybody. Not a whole ton to report from the PCO. The most important thing, and most recently from last night's meeting, as we're nearing the end of the school year, is kind of looking back on all of our topics that we've covered so far and all of our hopes and dreams, which I admit were wild and hopeful. And as we look back, we're kind of trying to refocus into a way that's more of a real expectation, goal setting kind of things. And we're really kind of trying to get our technology umbrella under control so that our website makes sense and is more welcoming and understanding to new families, current families, so on and so forth. We're just kind of working right now and getting ourselves together, getting ourselves a really good foundation to launch for next year, because it started in, for lack of a better word, I mean, just a bit of chaos. Like everybody kind of felt they were falling a little bit, I think, at the beginning of the year. And now we're like, okay, solid ground, goals, go. And there's a lot of things looming. One of the most important things that we are focused on for next year is teacher appreciation. And at every table I've sat at, whether that be with home office or you guys or PCO or anybody, it's how can we support our teachers, because they are the people who are spending the other half of our kids' day with them. And so whether that be, we believe that the start there is with our home base parents who already have carved out time to volunteer. So we're hoping that we can create more of a bandwidth with them and say, hey, if you're willing to be a home-based parent, maybe it actually requires maybe 3-4 hours a week. whether that teacher needs help organizing a bookshelf, making some copies, putting stuff in a mailbox, a hug, anything. And that's kind of like basically what we're trying to build, is a real partnership, a real foundation, so that those teachers know that they have a parent to say, these are my needs, help me. And that parent say, hey, I got you, and it starts there. I have lots of hopes and dreams too for the home-based parent network. I think that is the nucleus of this, starting the foundation of a community. And I have hopes and dreams of reaching out to my first grade class and say, hey, where are our kids' neighborhoods? Let's start a trash pickup in Lawrenceville and Shadyside and Garfield, wherever. That's just kind of the tip of the iceberg and some brainstorms that we're having, but we're trying to have a foundation, make sense, next year be a real launch point as our 15th year. And, that's where we are right today as of yesterday. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Big thank you to you too. I mean, we had a welcoming
Onboarding,
families
yeah.
On Friday into two of our schools, and PCO had a desk there at front end, and parents were able to come in, bring their little ones to a school, and almost everyone came to Tia's desk there and said, hello, was the PCO, and told me about that. Hopefully had some great recruiting moments with those families, but big huge thank you to those PCO volunteers downstairs also that
Thank you.
sold used uniforms and all kinds of things like that. It was really a lovely event, made lovely by the fact that we all spent that time together in one school space. So
I agree.
truly appreciate the presence there.
My pleasure. Our pleasure.
Thank you. Are there any significant events that are coming up?
We're working on volunteers to do a Kennywood Day. That was a big topic in last evening's meeting. We're also working on our event calendar, and we have to work on nominations. We do have, unfortunately, several positions in our framework that are still empty. We're minus a secretary and some vice chairs. So we are really looking at our structure and saying, does this current structure work for us, or can we fill the gaps in other ways to have more impact? But the jury's out for this year. Right now, we're just kind of setting the framework for real solid ground next year. Yeah.
We're eventually going to break for committee meetings tonight, but I wanted to know if any particular committee had an update. I know governance wanted to report out. Oh, Dwight. Okay.
Business. That first.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I just, John and I were talking about giving you sort of an overview of compliance for us, compliance for the board, for our staff, and then for the school. I mean, I've worked with Kristen in the past, and I think we have a lot of work still to do. But just to let you know what's expected, and a lot of you might already know this, because you've already done it, but for the board, you all know we need a PA criminal, child abuse, the FBI, or if you've been in Pennsylvania for 10 years or longer, you can fill out a form for that. And those are good for 5 years for any volunteers. There's a mandated reporter for board members because you are in a position to committee hear something and then report it if you know something's going on with the child. There's the state ethics finance form, which all of you I think can receive. You need those back by the end of April, the latest. They're due on the first. Confidentiality agreement, which everyone should have signed, and if not, I'm sure we can get that to you to sign. And then Act 55, which was the Act 55 of 2017 passed by the state, which was board training requirements for all boards, including charter school boards. And there are 6 areas they focus on: instruction and academic programs, personnel, governance and operations, fiscal management, and ethics, open meetings and regulations. They're webinars, and we'll be in touch with you about that. This will work with you. This will certainly be that board contact and with Tanya to sort of keep track of everything and get it set up. So we'll set up something with you to talk about how those webinars can be set up. That's sort of the board what's needed. For the staff, they also have those three basic issues, the criminal, child abuse, and FBI. They cannot do the 10-year living in Pennsylvania. They have to be FBI, and they have to be renewed every 3 years. HR follows that and lets anyone know when they're up. Usually that's in the spring, because usually prior to contracts, and they'll say, if you want your contract, your clearances are due, so once they're in, we'll issue your contract. We also do allergy training every 2 years. That's up this year. In the use of EpiPens, anaphylaxis. Narcan training, which we're doing this year again, every 2 years. We now have LifeVac. I don't know if you've heard of that, but LifeVac we went ahead with. We talked to something about it, but it's used after you've tried the Heimlich maneuver and other things. There is it's a suction really in the face. And so every cafeteria in our schools has one now. And so everyone is being trained on how to use that if necessary. It's just one of those moments where you realize it does happen. And I think it's one more way of sort of keeping our kids safe. They do tell you, though, it's the last thing to try. You know, obviously they want you to try the Heimlich first and other methods if you can, but if we need it, it's a LifeVac. So we have those. So the teachers are all being trained on that. We have CYF training, that's 3 hours every 5 years. Suicide prevention, which is 4 hours every 5 years. Opioid training, and that's for our health teachers. Anyone who's teaching, working with that. And they have to have that every 3 years. Crisis management, which is 3 hours every 5 years. Act 48, which is the professional development hours. Every teacher has to accumulate 180 hours of professional development in a 5-year period. Most of that's accomplished by work that we do with them, but also people who outside college, things like that, so they can get Act 48 for. Principals have what's called Act 45, which is the same thing. They have to accumulate a certain number of hours over a certain number of years to maintain their certification. The big one is really the school. That's the third bucket. We have our annual financial audit with Mayor Dussel. We have the annual review of PPS, which is coming up in May. We have the annual report, which I produce every year. It's due by August 1st, and that goes to the state and to our authorizer, PPS. There's a risk and vulnerability assessment every 3 years, but there's a safety survey, which Randy does every year. And also there's a school safety and security training, which is 3 hours for the staff every year. Federal programs audit, our Title I, Title II, Title IV, they come in every 4 years to audit our programs and make sure we're doing everything like we said we would. Safe Schools Report, which is based on our disciplinary issues within the school, and that's annually. PIMS, which covers a lot of things. As people know, if they work near me, when you hear me sign a lot, it's because I'm working on PIMS, which is the Pennsylvania Information Management System, which is very frustrating. Don't just say that. But that's about students, staff, special ed. It's every bit of information about our school, which is submitted to the state over the course of the year. There's a full calendar I follow, which tells me when and what's needed. And there's one of the things where you submit it, and then they reject it, and then you redo it, and you submit it, and they reject it, and then you do it again, and you submit it, and they reject it, and I stop.
Good.
Easy.
So that's a big one. Special ed audit is every 6 years, and that's this year, beginning March 27th, they're coming in. They lasted us 6 years ago, they're coming in now. We're in great shape. I think that'll be a good audit for us. The school lunches, Nikki takes care of that. They come in and audit them every couple of years. We also have to submit menus to the state, showing nutritionally our menus are balanced. We do a lot of that. We do the CRDC, which is the Civil Rights Data Collection, and that's annually to the federal government. And I'm sure that's not all of them, but that's a good part. Compliance issues that we do. So there is a lot that goes on and tracking it. Mandy tracks some of those. I do a lot of the tracking. Tanya does it. But it's really important because whenever they come in to audit us, you want to make sure you have a clean slate, you have everything in place that you should. Any questions on any of that? I know I went through it quickly, but.
Do you have, do we have to comply with FERPA also? Does that apply to the school?
Yes.
And is there a compliance piece of that you, no? Okay. The FERPA is the federal law that makes student records private, essentially.
So all of those responsibilities are divided amongst us all, as Dwight said. What might help us in working with the board is to, if we share that construct with you and share how it's split, rather than living in these heads, having a partner with the board here to talk about our compliance or approach to compliance, and then critiquing that, right? What are we doing well? What are we doing? What are some systems that we could improve over the course of the year as the cycle goes on? It's a lot, but it lives in all of these buckets. It rarely gets reviewed as a whole. So, you know, it's really a sort of collaborative board. There are some folks amongst us that are willing, able, and keen to work in this space, getting a framework together to say, that's what we have to do in the day. How might we approach it differently? Or just to cut it back and say, keep going.
I'd certainly, John, I'd certainly think that that's always a good idea, because those are the types of hazards that you don't know about, and they can cause a big problem if you haven't reviewed what you're doing in a while. So I'd certainly, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the entire board, obviously, but I think it certainly seems like a good project.
Right, and there were some other, you took a program, but civil rights are another space, right, which are really, really complicated, and often we don't deal with until we have to deal with. And looking through the lens to say, how can we be better, you know, how can we work in a more preventative way? How do we set up systems to check and balance along throughout the year? That would be a useful conversation to have. Maybe do pretty well. But you know, to get board review would be helpful beyond an annual review through the PBS or someone else. Thanks, Wayne, everyone. That was too exciting.
So are you essentially looking for a few volunteers to do that, maybe on like an annual basis?
Yeah, I think, you know, a couple of board members were interested to go back through the list, talk about how, you know, just spend a little time to say, how do we deliver that? And then some questions around the program, and questions about some of those big civil pieces that we won't necessarily sort of interact with until something goes to the left or the right. And ultimately, I think it's worth having those conversations too. So. Plus, we use law firms. You know, nothing against the attorneys at the table, but they're expensive, and often we use them at a time when okay, now we need some help. And I think in a way, learning to use them in a preventative way would be useful too. So some advice on that.
They are expensive. That's true. That's true. Yeah. No, but I do think that's a good idea, and I think one of the aspects of that that I would see is reviewing policies, understanding how they're implemented, and then figuring out if there are ways in which maybe in certain instances where more training is needed with respect to implementation of a certain policy, because it's one thing to have it, it's another thing people know about it and they know how to implement it. And that's what sort of part of the review. You don't necessarily even need to change anything. You might have great policies, but it's making sure that when you have staff turnover and things, that certain things are being done correctly, or that certain aspects of haven't been left out. So.
It may be a part of this work, but is there anything that the board could do better around like our own adherence to what we need to do. Like Kristen and Adam have both created this wonderful document in our.
Originally. Credit where credit's due.
Strike that. Sucker. Created this wonderful document that kind of lists what we need to do, but my own question is, how do we track who's done what?
Right. And I think that's part of the work, is that, strictly, to look at those in three buckets, and the compliance at the board level is important, and I think that it's important to have a voice at the board that says, okay, fellow board members, rather than moving it to sort of Dwight perhaps as our compliance officer, who has a lot of compliance, 360, to chase individual board members. So I think journeying through that and saying, okay, as we close out a school year in the next 3 months, preparing for the new school year, the new cycle, would be time well spent, I think, ensuring that whoever, especially the new board members, teeing up that, because there's a lot of time involved here. Activity provides every year to make it easier for us to access to webinars, etc. But it's still a lot of time, so it's worth spending a little time at these board meetings, saying, okay, let's have a moment on compliance internally. These are the issues that we need to, across all the trainings that we do in the next 3 months. And so I think that's part of it. To answer your question, Lisa, yeah, that would be really helpful.
That's what I've been trying to tell you.
That's the one message there. You're act together. Okay. All right. So, any other business?
Anything else? Why Nicola is
Kristen, do you want to give it?
Yeah, actually, perfect timing because it preempted some of what we talked about in the governance meeting today. We were going to ask some questions about Act 55 and things like that, actually. So we can table all of that, but compliance did come up. As part of that, and there was a reference to this earlier too, one of the things we talked about was trying to make some of the policies and other documents easier for board members to access. We moved to Google Drive now. Sometimes policies will come up in these meetings and it's not easy to know where could we review that and those types of things. So this is for the board, but one of the things we were interested in doing without creating a lot of extra work for anybody is to come up among the board members with just some ideas of things that have come up in meetings we wish it would have been easy for us to access, and see if there's a way that we can build that into the Google Drives, make it pretty automated. I mean, we really don't want this to be something that takes a lot of work, but how can we see them more easily? So if board members have ideas, before we came with our ask, we wanted to sort of organize the big topics and see what you all thought about it. So if everyone wants to think about that, and I can send around an email. So that was the big one, reviewing policy. How do we view it? How can we keep on top of that? And then the only other thing which we bring up every month is that we are still recruiting for board positions, especially in finance. So Meryl sent us another name, which was great. We're going to pursue looking at that candidate too. But if anyone has any ideas, please keep sending them our way.
Actually, Chris, we really need to stand whatever, and just we need to be able to
Okay.
our policies need to be updated. So it's something we thought about a lot. They're in 2 big books, but those 2 big books are not accessible regularly unless you're around. Some of them are, depending on how recent they are, might have copies that I typed up and things together. But that's not all. I think you do need to figure out how to upload them.
Yeah.
And then everyone does it.
Yeah, and that's very expensive. Yeah.
So any board member out there own businesses digitized and organized, or have companies that provide that service that we know of, please let me know. Please let the white know, or chase those companies up. I think it's worth spending most of dollars to get those accessible.
There are concerns from a governance perspective or otherwise if there's multiple board members from within the same company or organization. Like, I don't know.
Angela, I work with both of them.
Oh, yeah, you do. Okay.
Well, she left but when we first started teaching, so.
Okay.
Not that we've discussed. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
we could, but not right now. I'd say.
That's fine. Just because I'm thinking of somebody, but I didn't know if that was,
Yeah.
the list act to work with. Mike.
I imagine you probably want some diversity, but I don't think having two people from the same organization would be necessarily a problem.
And one last thing, which I didn't mention specifically in talking about policy, Dan's going to lead the charge on looking at the conflict of interest policy, which he's been talking with John about, just to see if there are any updates, changes, things we want to add to the language surrounding the recusal policy. So that'll be coming for the board as well.
Yeah, the biggest, we talked about it a little bit in an earlier meeting, but is that the current policy, that I understand is the current policy, doesn't, to me, seem to address the actual conflict of interest that the board might have. It addresses other staff members, and at least not in a way that's completely clear to me. So that's something I think we'll review, and I will, like I said, I will happy to take the lead, kind of flagging issues that I see potentially, and maybe making some suggestions, and then we'll go from there and report back to the board on sort of what some of those suggestions might be, how to implement them.
A question going back to the board. Has ECS in the past ever used like nonprofit talent to post board positions, open board positions? Nonprofit talent, yeah, to post board positions.
Not board positions. We've used them for execs, but.
Right, okay. I just know they have a function of board positions that you could post. And, it might be great to, you could, write finance. And so you're only getting folks with that background if that's our gap. And then you could also broaden your horizons a bit to focus on, diversity and inclusion. So if we don't know it within our own network, it's worth a discussion, just because you may also, like, how are you going to go through the applying and, I don't know, making sure they're vetted, whatever. But it again, just might give us a little bit more of a pool.
Is it a service that you pay for? I'm just curious.
It's Michelle.
I think it's what?
Michelle.
Oh, I don't know. Is it? I thought volunteer, there's a couple of different things, but I thought board, because it's like volunteer purposely, is free to post for 30 days or something. But if you're doing a certain position or a certain level, there are elements that are paid. And then there's also BoardWorks. Have you guys used that? BoardWorks through Bayer Center for Nonprofit. They pair, like, there's folks that want to be on a board, they don't know how to get on, and we can go to them and say, well, we're looking for so-and-so, and they could try to help facilitate a match.
Yeah. I'll take a look at both of those and see what's on offer, but I think that's great.
Okay.
Anything else before we move into executive session? Okay. All right, well then I would like to make a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Second. All in favor? Opposed? All right, so moved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, whoever's online.
Nice.
What was the,
What can I say?
the acronym now? The law that you stated about